What's up, guys? Welcome to Broke and Stressed, a PT student podcast where we talk about our lives as broke and stressed physical therapy students. Throughout grad school, you'll come to find that the struggles that you're having happen all the time to thousands of students across the country. You are not alone. In this podcast, we'll share our personal stories and walk you through how we overcame some of our own struggles. I'm your host, Ruben. Let's have some fun, have some good conversation, and let's get into the episode. Alright, guys, welcome back to Broke and Stressed. We have Oliver Rivera with us today as our guest. Just to give you some brief backgrounds about my relationship with Oliver. So, was it your last rotation that you were at Atletico?
No, it was my second to last.
Second to last. Okay.
Yeah.
So while he was in his second to last rotation, clinical rotation, he was at Atletico, and I was actually office coordinator in the process of applying to PT school. And then he went off and to finish PT school, and then lo and behold, later on, about a year later, he got accepted to become a resident PT at UIC during my first year. And so that's kind of my relationship with Oliver. It's kind of crazy because Caitlin, who you guys might have listened to the podcast a couple episodes ago, was his CI at the time. So it's kind of a crazy small world. But Oliver, why don't you give everyone a brief background of where you went to school for undergrad and PT school, and we'll start off there.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I went to undergrad at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, and I went in as a chemistry major, thinking that I would do pharmacy school. But, you know, like, when you're not in the thing that you're passionate about, it's hard to stay focused and disciplined to doing that. So, yeah, pharmacy was just something that I was thinking of because my uncle, or my aunt and my cousin were both pharmacists. I'm like, yeah, that seems like a good job. I think I'd be comfortable if I was a pharmacist. So yeah, thought I was going to do that. But yeah, all the chemistry classes I had to take, all the extra math I had to do. I think I had to take up to Calculus 3. And I swear I had no idea what was going on in Calc 2 or Calc 3, but somehow I passed those. But it wasn't until I was about a junior at U of I that I decided to switch. And then, I mean, like every physical therapist, they were in therapy as a high school athlete or a youth athlete and got their feet wet. So that's when I did some observations with some PTs that I knew and figured, yeah, this seems like way more my style. I'd be interacting with people a lot. I'm not sitting behind a desk looking at a screen the whole time, even though I do my fair share of looking at screens as a therapist, but just saw that they were more involved with their patients. They were able to communicate more with their patients, got to know them a little bit better. So that's what drew me to physical therapy. But I would say that since I wasn't too focused on chemistry in my first 2 years of college, I didn't have the greatest GPA, overall GPA or science GPA. So it definitely took me a little bit to get into PT school. I didn't apply the first round my senior year. I waited. And then when I did apply for that first round, it didn't get in anywhere, which was rough. But I kind of got that. Like, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Wasn't well prepared for it. And yeah, I just had that rough undergrad GPA. And I took some extra classes, just became more well-rounded. I was actually got a job as a tech, rehab aide. I think you were that, Ruben, for accelerated rehab prior to the merger of Atletico and Accelerated. So I did that for 2 years. And then, yeah, I remember the day so well on that second round of applications. Got home, got that email in my inbox. And it was just like, you're accepted to PT school. I just remember going crazy on my computer screen that day just because so many applications, so many, was it like $10 per school or whatever it is? And it was just a really good day when that happened. Yeah, you had a tougher time getting into school, right, Ruben?
Oh, man, yeah. I kind of had a similar journey as well. I was actually pre-pharmacy, too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I was actually did like the chemistry aspect of it, but then kind of what you were saying, like you're missing the interaction with the patients. And that was like something I feel like couldn't be replaced, especially sitting behind a desk.
Yeah.
That's when I made the switch and I was like, you know what, what's PT like? So my friend offered me a job as a tech, like you said, and I kind of followed in your footsteps there. And yeah, I did take a gap year, worked full-time as an office coordinator after being an aide. And then, yeah, I remember the first time getting in, I feel like is the hardest part. Like that whole
definitely, for sure.
Like, way harder than, like, people will always say that because, man, I was on the bus, I think, because when I got the email, and I literally I think I screamed on the bus. Everyone looked back at me. And then I called Denise, who was the facility manager. I just called her like, dude, I got in. I think I almost cried. think I literally almost cried, and nothing beat that moment, honestly.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I was in my room living at my mom's house after school, and I screamed, and she like ran in, and was like, "What's going on?" But in Filipino or Tagalog, because yeah, she just talks to me in Tagalog. But yeah, whoever is listening to this, just know that full disclosure, I had like a 3.0 science GPA, like a 2.97 overall GPA, and I got in. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
There you go. And where did you go to school? I don't think did you say that already?
No, I didn't. So I went to Toro University in Nevada, and that was the only place that I got accepted to. I think I was waitlisted to a bunch of places, but by the time that I needed to make the decision, I just said yes to them since, yeah, they were the first ones to say yes. And yeah, decided to pack up and move out west for 2.5 years. So yeah, it's quite the journey. Definitely an experience living in Las Vegas versus Chicagoland and Illinois, since yeah, grew up in the west suburbs in Chicago, and then yeah, went to Champaign for 4 years. So that was an experience.
What a journey, man. What a journey. And what do you do? Where do you work at currently?
So currently I'm a physical therapist at the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab in their outpatient ortho center. Yeah, I started there like almost 2 years ago. Great place to work. I'm having a lot of fun there.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And then let's kind of take a step back real quick. I do this with all my guests. I have them talk about an embarrassing moment from PT school that you can remember off the top of your head.
So there isn't one moment, but it's been like a lot of incidences. Is actually when my classmates like saw the amount of notes and studying I did. So I barely listened during a lecture just because my attention span was really short during those lectures. I'm sure like a lot of you guys are like that. So what I did is, one, I lived at Starbucks, and I would take every lecture that I had for all my classes, and I would handwrite them all out, basically. All of the stuff, especially the stuff like I didn't know, and then I would go look that up in our textbooks or talk to my professors, and then I would do that over and over again for the test. So like people would see the amount of stuff I would write on paper, and it would just be like stacks of paper and just like small ineligible lines that only I could understand. So whenever someone would just look at what I was doing, because I had a bunch of buddies that would study with me at Starbucks, and other people would come, they're just like, "What the hell, Ollie? Like, that is crazy." And I would get like hand cramps, and just it was, yeah, don't miss PT school just because of that fact. Anytime I go into Starbucks and smell the Starbucks smell, I just get flashbacks to just sitting in front of that desk and just writing as much as I.
You're just scarred from going into a Starbucks.
Yeah, brings back some memories there.
Is that how you always used to study in undergrad? Just writing everything down?
You know, in undergrad, I didn't really study. So like I said, wasn't the best student in undergrad. But the thing is, when you find your drive, when you find your passion, you're willing to put in the work. And that's what I saw myself in PT school. Is like I was really just getting into it and trying to learn as much as I could.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so different when you're an undergrad. You're just learning so many random things that you probably don't even care about. And then you're finally in your profession, you're finally learning the stuff that you genuinely care about, and you're actually going to be using your day-to-day. So obviously you're going to be paying attention, you're going to be passionate about it. So it's so different being in grad school versus in college.
For sure. And like the thing is too, is that you're going to find your areas that you're passionate about in physical therapy school. Like I love ortho, obviously. So all my ortho classes, like I made sure I knew everything that was happening there. And then also loved neuro. So like those were the two subjects that I like paid the most attention to and tried to like, I would definitely overstudy everything and go into way more detail than I had to. But it was fun exploring all of that detail. So yeah, that'll happen for everybody. It's like they'll just find those little areas that draws them to a specific setting. And I definitely got pulled into neuro and ortho, and then ortho in the end just kind of won out.
And that's when you decided you're going to pursue a residency, correct?
My biggest thing, so there are two factors with residency. I remember our ortho professor, he had like the alphabet soup. Like he had his ortho specialty, his sports specialty, and he was a fellow, a manual therapy fellow. So I was like, man, this guy has a lot of credentials. I mean, that could probably help you in the profession, right? So I was thinking about residency already, like early on when I was a first year PT student. And then I remember a couple guys in third year when I was the first year got accepted to ortho residencies. So I was chatting with them about it, and that got me even more interested. And then like the final nail in the coffin was on my first outpatient rotation, which was 2-patient medical group in Downers Grove. My CI, he did a residency, and he was an ortho specialist. And for that rotation, he was like drilling me the whole time on like making up my like differential diagnosis lists, giving me articles to read, and it felt like it was like a mini residency there. Even though that challenged me a lot, I like learned so much in that rotation that I knew right away that I wanted to do it through him. So that's when I just applied everywhere to try and get in somewhere. And the fun thing is like it was basically like PT school all over again. You're like, am I like good enough to get into a residency? Like this is a very intimidating thing, but yeah, luckily it worked out.
Was the application process for that as stressful as PT school, or no?
It was similar for sure. Like, what is it? Like, they always ask you questions about like, why do you want to do this? There's always that question. Why do you want to do this? And I think most people who ask me about if I want to do a residency, like, I make sure to tell them that's like your biggest thing there is understanding why you want to do this. Because if you don't really know why, then they're going to know that you don't know why, and like they probably won't select you without that really good reason.
Oliver, tell me a little bit about, because when I first heard about residency, I also heard about fellowships, and honestly, I still kind of don't know the difference. So would you be able to elaborate for myself and the listeners what the difference between residency, fellowship, what made you choose residency over fellowship, etc.?
Yeah. So residency is like, you have like subjects in school. A residency is just like a specialization or extra training in that specific subject. In a sports residency, you'll cover like everything sports, which also has an ortho component to it. So it's just like extra training in a specific area of physical therapy, but like a broad area. Whereas fellowship is more of a specialty within that specialty, per se, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of ortho fellowships out there. There's obviously a manual therapy fellowship. There's a spine fellowship. There's like an upper quarter athlete fellowship that you can get into. So it's just like, subspecialty, I guess would be the right word. It's like with your physicians who do like a residency in ortho and then do a orthopedic surgery fellowship. So it's just kind of narrowing your lenses or narrowing your knowledge base, basically.
Do you have any tips for anyone deciding between the two, like depending on where they're at in their PT journey, like how to distinguish which one they want more or which one would be a better option for them?
I think definitely early on, if you're thinking of doing something like that, like for me, I'm a big advocate of residency. And I think it's the biggest thing that shaped my career thus far, my short 3-year career thus far. But like the best thing that I got from residency is just that one-on-one mentoring and this guided development of out of my thought processes. And it's not like I was pushed to like think how my mentors in residency treat. It was like them helping me like create my own way of treating, my own way of like asking patients questions and just being able to problem solve. So as a new clinician, you have all of these special tests, all this information that you learned in school. You barely know how to do a subjective interview. And the residency just helps you like get that 3 to 5 year experience that you'd get on your own within that 1 year period. So a more seasoned clinician out of school, like if you graduate and you're 5 years out, like maybe the residency isn't for you just because you've already developed those skills on your own. And you've been exposed to enough of the research out there that you don't need like all of this extra info that's being like pushed on you in residency. But for me, I don't know. I feel like I never said I would do this like this much schooling, but I loved it. I loved like having all of these articles thrown at me. Like my mentors challenged me to like go learn about this, and come back. So I would, in general, it's if you're like 1 to 2 years out, like most people say residency is best done at that time. Whereas fellowship, it's really up to the person, because I've seen people who have done fellowship right after a residency. I've seen people that have done a fellowship like 10 years out of school. It's just when you feel ready to make that jump to the next level of, I guess, knowledge and understanding. I think most of my UIC mentors told me that probably you don't want to do a residency right away after a fellowship, because right after a residency, you still have, like in school, you still have a lot of processing to do and how to utilize everything you've learned. But I finished residency 2 years ago, and now is the time where I feel like fellowship is the right time, where I'm kind of at a plateau in terms of what I'm doing, and I'm ready to get challenged again to make that next jump in terms of clinical decision making and just overall patient care.
Yeah, that's cool. It's like right now I've been torn. I've been back and forth for the entire duration of PT school. If I always said I wanted one, but then I'm like, man, maybe I just want to work. I don't want to go back to school. I just want to get start making some money to pay off these loans.
Another thing that I tell people when they ask me why should I do a residency early on is that, of course, with a residency, you're gonna not make as much money, because there are a couple of types. There's in-house university types, or in-house companies that host the in-house, or there's programs that you pay for. And the programs that you pay for, you can work as a full-time clinician, get a full salary, but you're still paying out of pocket the cost of that residency. Or like my residency at UIC that was in-house, you're taking a pay cut because that pay cut pays for your participation in that residency. So it's a lot harder to make a full salary and then go to a smaller salary when you're out of school, versus just get paid a little. You're still getting paid, but it's not as much, but you're not tasting that full salary yet, if you know what I mean.
Do you have any tips on trying to pick the right program for you when you're considering residency?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is fit. You just have to find the program that has the right fit for you. And you got to remember that when you're interviewing for residencies, you also should be interviewing them, because with those mentors that are there, they're the ones that are going to be watching you for 4 hours a week or whatever it is that they do. And they're the ones that are going to tell you what you need to improve upon. So if you can't gel with that person that's telling you basically you need to do this, this, and this better, then it's not going to be a good time, or it's not going to go well. So for me, my biggest thing going in is making sure that I got the right vibe from everybody, and it felt like a place where I could grow and I could take their criticism of how I performed. I got invited to interview at 4 to 5 places. I think the first one was the University of Wisconsin, and with them, they're a long established program, and one of my classmates at Toro, who's a couple years above me, actually did their residency at their program, but it just wasn't a right fit with mentors for me. But at UIC, that was my second interview that I did. Within the first 30 minutes of Aaron, or Dr. Kyle, however you guys know him, after the first 30 minutes of hearing him talk, I was I'm sold. This guy, I want to work with this guy just because of how he interacts, of kind of what he's about. And I canceled all my other interviews that I had scheduled with University of Michigan and Johns Hopkins. I was I want to be here. And luckily it all worked out. Loved my experience, and glad I did it. But the biggest thing is fit. If it's not the right fit, it's not going to be good. Then I'd say the second biggest thing is why you want to do it. Because if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, if you're doing it to make money, it's probably not going to be a good time. Because one, you're going to make less money in residency. Two, just because you did a residency doesn't mean you're going to make more money going out. And physical therapy is a field where I feel if you're doing it for money, you may not be in it for the right reasons. Just because, starting a salary is on the lower end for healthcare providers. But if you want to do it to better your patient interactions, your clinical decision making, and just to be a better overall therapist, then those are the right reasons. And that's where you'll succeed if you do one.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for those tips. Kind of moving on to more so your hobbies in physical therapy. Let's talk about, you're really into rock climbing. So I know you did a presentation at CSM regarding rock climbing. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and your experience with that?
Yeah, so I started rock climbing when I was in Las Vegas, just because we had a Red Rock National Park, like 20 minutes from our school, and a bunch of my classmates climbed, so got into that out there. And then in residency, we had to do a capstone project, and I did like an original research project looking at if there were any relationships between wrist and hand measures and injury. So yeah, wrote that all up for an abstract submission to CSM. And when I was in residency, it actually was rejected. So that was fun. But after working at Shirley Ryan, they have a big research arm. I was working with one of the physicians on our floor, who's the director of musculoskeletal research, and working with him, we kind of cleaned it up. And on the second go around for CSM 2020, it was accepted for a poster. From that's been giving me some opportunities out of nowhere. Like after that magazine article, I just got called by the director, or not the director, a writer for the APTA In Motion magazine, just because he saw my name on the list of abstracts concerning rock climbing. And then from there, that came out and kind of blew up a little bit.
That's cool, man. Literally just kind of doing some research on one of your hobbies, and you're kind of learning, you're taking that in your field of work and what you're passionate about and kind of melding it in together. That's awesome that you're able to present it. Have you ever had a research experience before, like played a hand in any type of research?
In actually physical therapy school, we had to do a capstone project there, and we had to do a full IRB write-up for our project. And we were looking at, what did we do? I can't even remember. It was something about boxing, because one of my buddies was a boxer, and we just looked at, I can't even remember what we did, but we went through the whole process of writing the IRB application, making a survey to send out to all the gyms, and then a whole data analysis. So going from that project to my capstone project in residency was actually that was super helpful. So if you're in PT school, take those projects seriously, because you never know if you're going to do research down the road. But that experience just helped a lot and sparked my interest in doing research as a physical therapist. And it was the big component of me choosing UIC too for my residency, because they had a big research arm to the residency. And I ended up with this project here. And that's definitely one of my hobbies now, or not hobbies, but interests as a clinician, is doing research. So I'm involved in a couple of projects at work at Shirley Ryan that I wrote the IRB for, and hopefully get started soon.
That's awesome, man. Are you able to disclose any of that information now, or
Yeah, one of them is concerning NEOA. So the physician that helped me out with my capstone project, he is doing a study on injections and those outcomes with NEOA. So I talking with him, and we're gonna do a NEOA study and physical therapy outcomes and comparing some different factors. I don't want to disclose too much yet, but hopefully that gets started soon. And then looking at doing a sports screening study, just looking at the various tools that are already out there and just seeing if any clusters help predict injury.
I think that's one thing that I never really had a hand in until PT school, doing research. I always thought that stuff was so cool, but having your name on an abstract, I just think it's one of the things I want to check off my bucket list for sure. In PT school, we did have some stuff where we did peer review articles, we wrote cat papers and stuff, but having your own hand in actually performing the research is maybe something I want to do down the line. So that's awesome that you have experience in that, and that you're doing even more with it now with work.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you haven't done one, or if you have only done one as a student, it seems super intimidating to do it on your own, without any money or anything. But there's a lot of things that you can investigate that don't cost anything, as long as you're collecting the right data and know kind of what questions to ask. Obviously, bigger projects, you'll need funding if you're bringing a bunch of people in, or doing, I don't know, need specific equipment. But there's a lot of little investigational stuff that you can kind of do that doesn't involve too much outside help. It can be done pretty easily if you just know the right people. And I feel very fortunate that I have worked with a lot of people who have pushed me into the research direction, and have given me the resources to people to ask, things to base some of my stuff on, that have made it a lot easier for me to get into this research world. So yeah, hopefully it keeps going in that direction. I think the biggest thing that I want to do as a physical therapist is just do cool things. And yeah, finding a place that lets you do cool things is tough, but when you find a place that lets you just do what you want in terms of like how you treat, what areas you can dive into in terms of projects, definitely stick with that place. And yeah, I feel like I found that at Shirley Ryan so far. So yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I remember I did some hours at Shirley Ryan. That place is next level, man. That place is awesome. Super jealous that you have a job at Shirley Ryan, especially in the outpatient. But moving forward, like if you take a look at maybe your 5-10 year plan, where do you see yourself? What's the next step in your career for Oliver Rivera?
Like right now, I was accepted to a manual therapy fellowship at Northwestern, and luckily it was going to be based out of my clinic at Shirley Ryan as one of the treatment clinics, but that's kind of all up in the air right now with the coronavirus. So we don't know if that program's going to get pushed through just because our hospital prioritized getting some other stuff done, which is understandable. But I definitely still want to do that manual therapy fellowship. So hopefully this year or next year it gets to happen. Because I think, I just want to rip off that Band-Aid. So the thing you have to know with residency or fellowship, it's going to be a very tough year. Don't expect it to be like a cakewalk, because whoever signs up for it, you have to know that you're going to get challenged, you're going to get pushed to your limits, but in the end, it's going to be worth it, because you'll just make that growth as a clinician. So I kind of want it to happen this year just so I can rip off that Band-Aid and get it over with. But then down the road, I don't know, I'm liking what I'm doing now. I get to treat patients, I'm doing research, and I'm still helping out in classrooms. I'm still TAing as a kinesiology TA at UIC. And then I'm starting to help out with some classes at Northwestern here and there, being like a proctor for the practicals, like giving a lecture for the residency at Northwestern so far. Still want to try to push myself in all three of those directions. I think my perfect job would be to teach, do research, and then treat all in a week. So getting closer to that. But yeah, I'm thinking about doing a PhD in the future, but we'll see if that actually happens.
Oh man, yeah, it's awesome.
Like I said, I never thought I would do all of this schooling, but I don't know. Maybe I'm like a masochist or whatever the right word is, that just likes putting themselves through torture.
Hey man, you're learning and you're having fun and you're passionate about it. That's all you can really ask for. It's not like you're miserable. I mean, you're doing the work and you're
sometimes you're miserable.
Yeah. It's a trade-off.
Exactly. What do you think, Ruben? What do you want to do?
My big 5-10 year plan. So out of school, I definitely want to go into either travel or home health. With travel, I think it's just awesome to be able to travel and do what I love, patients, and just be able to travel to different places. I never traveled much as a kid, so I think it's I'm envious of that. I was actually, I don't know if I told you, probably don't know this, but for my last clinical in spring, I was supposed to be in Italy.
Oh, no, you did not tell me this.
Yeah, so
Bummer.
And then the COVID happened, so I'm denying that now because they're potential for the program to be cut and then playing it safe there, and especially with COVID still being a thing for a little bit now, definitely deterred my decision there. But long term, I do want to have my own outpatient clinic of sorts, maybe connected to some type of gym. That would be my dream right there. For sure. After loans are paid off, of course.
Yeah, that's the rough part there, student loans. But I mean, can't say much about that. It's the reality of the profession that they're going to be there. So that's awesome though, man. See, that's something that I have no interest in, is starting my own clinic. But I'm glad there are others out there, because that helps push it helps us get away from all the big box clinics out there. A lot more individualism in terms of physical therapy out there.
Mm-hmm. I definitely love that about our field. It's you can do so much. You're not just in an outpatient clinic. You can do so many. You can do research. You could start your own clinic. You can do so many different things. And I think people don't know that I definitely didn't know any of that going in. Yeah. I thought it was literally just outpatient. treat knees, shoulders. That's my life.
And I think that's the key to our profession is variety. Like if you're treating 40 hours a week, like it gets a little rough after a while. And depending on the clinic that you're at, it could definitely burn you out quicker than most. So finding that balance and finding the areas that you really want to be working in or pursue your interests in. Like, yeah, I've gotten to do some cool things, but like I also like want to do some stuff on the side, like working with athletes, starting like a little side business, but I still like doing all of this other stuff. So I don't know. That for me, it's like variety. I feel like I get bored very easily. So doing different things is the key to me to succeed.
So to kind of end things off, Oliver, the title of this podcast is Broken Stress. Do you have any tips for all those broken, stressed PT students out there that are listening to us right now? Listening back to this podcast.
Tips for dealing with all the stress through PT school? I don't know. Like everyone has their own fields to vent. Luckily, I had rock climbing. That was my thing that I started in PT, so I took that seriously. And then just, I played a lot of FIFA in PT school. And I still do. Like that's my de-stressor at the end of the day. But yeah, succeeding through PT school though, just find that passion. Like if anything, if you find that thing that makes you want to like do cool things, then you'll definitely be successful in the field.
Definitely, man. Well, Oliver, thank you for hopping on the podcast. I'm very thankful to have you here.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you to everyone that was listening to this episode. And we will see you guys in the next one. Later, guys. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to today's episode of Broken Stressed. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to smash that follow or subscribe button to get notified whenever new episodes are released. If you want to connect with me on social media, you can find me on YouTube or Instagram. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.